In this video, you'll learn how to get started using Checkpoint for tax research, particularly at the federal level. I'll cover what Checkpoint is and how to navigate it, and I'll point out helpful hints in performing several types of searches. Checkpoint, sometimes still referred to as RIA Checkpoint, is an up-to-date and authoritative database tailored for tax law research. It is similar to CCH, which is also a tax-focused database, and Westlaw, which is a legal database with a broader scope. Within Checkpoint, you'll find both primary sources, such as codes, regulations, and court cases, and secondary sources, such as handbooks, analyses, and tools. Primary sources are official sources of law, whereas secondary sources are those that can help you understand and interpret the law. As you can see, when you first get into the database, the sources listed below the search box are organized according to these main categories. The sources that are listed here are those that are applicable to the federal practice area. You can change practice areas on the left, for example, to state or international tax. And this will automatically change the set of sources that are available to search from the search bar. For this video, we'll return to the federal practice area where we can search the Internal Revenue Code, federal tax cases, and the Federal Tax Handbook. Before we move on, a note of caution about saving your work. Because there is a limit on how many people can use Checkpoint through our institution at one time, the system will boot you out after a period of inactivity. This is typically about 5 or 10 minutes, but you will only see a 1-minute warning. So it is helpful to write down your search strategies and paths as you go, and export or otherwise save sources that you find important. I'll cover how you can do this later in the video. So let's take a closer look at the layout of the interface. The main screen you come to is actually the Search tab, which is where you'll likely do the majority of your work. The home screen is not especially relevant to us, but the other items in this menu might be of interest, especially if you want to keep up with current tax news or use some of the tools and calculators that they provide. Because we don't have individual logins for our subscription, the items in the very top menu are not enabled for us, but you can still access and use the help documentation. In the main part of the window, we see the main keyword search area with the listed available sources, and to the left of that are the practice area drop-down menu, alternative methods of searching for known items, and some quick links to common tools. Back in the main search area, there are a couple things to note before jumping into your search. One is that you have a choice between what is called an intuitive search and a terms and connectors search. The intuitive search functions a little more like a search engine, in which the database is doing some informed guessing about how to interpret what you entered into the search box. The terms and connector search is a more precise search that does not do that. Instead, it searches solely based on what you enter into the box. It also allows you to have more control because you can use specific functions to make a more strategic search strategy. The second thing to note is that no sources are selected by default. If you attempt to search without first selecting any sources, you will get an error message reminding you to do so. This is actually a helpful feature because you will certainly return too many results and be overwhelmed if you search all of the sources by default. Instead, it is best to intentionally think about the sources that make the most sense for your information need and only search through a limited number of sources at one time. We'll start by doing a simple intuitive keyword search. Note that you can expand some sources to further specify where you want to perform your search. For the Internal Revenue Code, we have the option of searching the current code and its past versions. I'm going to select only the current version so that I don't get confused by outdated laws. I'll also select both final, temporary, and proposed Treasury regulations and tax court reported decisions. For my search terms, I'm going to put in my topic without a lot of strategy at first, and we'll see what we get. You'll notice that as you start to type, the system suggests some terms and phrases, and sometimes even brings up some quick links, which you may find helpful. I'm going to search for charitable contributions of land. By default, our results are organized according to the sources we searched. The stars indicate the relevance of the item to your search. Here you can see the most relevant document from each source at the top when we expand each source. You can also switch to the All Documents tab, which will allow you to look at all results together, regardless of the source they're coming from. This will also be sorted by table of contents initially, but you can sort it by relevance instead to bring all of the most relevant sources to the top of the page. This is where it can get a little bit confusing if you're searching through many sources at once, but you'll start to get a hang of how titles are structured according to the source they come from. I'm going to go back to Source List and select the most relevant code section. When you click into various documents, you'll see that all documents will have the same basic interface. The first menu across the top is where you can print, export, or otherwise save the document. There are also some viewing options if you prefer full screen or different font sizing. Below that is a second row of buttons that relate this document to others from various sources within the database. You can also access these by expanding the Links menu on the right. The drop-down menu items correspond to each button on the left and list links to specific sections or documents in the database that may offer more information on your topic. This can be especially helpful if you are reading through a primary source and would like to quickly find some secondary sources to help you understand it. These buttons are also present throughout the document to make more precise connections between sections. Other helpful functions in this menu are the Contents and Search Results. The Contents feature helps you see exactly where you are in terms of all the sources and documents in the database. This is helpful in identifying the part of a source that you're looking at and in understanding the structure of the database and each source. Here you can see that we're looking at the current Internal Revenue Code and specifically the subtitle, chapter, subchapter, and part that this document lives in. Finally, the Search Results menu allows you to peek back at your search results without having to exit back out of the current document view. In looking at the document itself, you'll see that your search terms are highlighted throughout. You can scroll through these using the Navigate by Keyword arrows at the top right. Be careful because you might accidentally slip into the next document in your search results when it reaches the end of this document. You can also use the Control Find function on your keyboard to quickly jump to your keywords or other terms. For instance, when I do a Control Find search for land, I see a big cluster near the bottom that I may want to check out. If I click on the links that reference other various subsections, it will take me to the beginning of the subsection within the document that it's referring to. And I can keep navigating up and through the document that way. As I skim through this document, I'm also picking up on new terms that I may want to try in my searches to refine my search strategy, such as using real property instead of the word land. As you navigate through the document, you'll also see a symbol indicating cardinal directions. If you hover over this, you will see the full section address of that section, so you don't have to go through and scroll up and piece it together yourself. This shows you where you are currently in the document, whereas the Contents feature earlier shows where the document as a whole lives within the source and database. With these two pieces of information, you'll know exactly how to get back to and begin to cite information that is important to you. Let's try a similar search using terms and connectors. The link next to this choice, Thesaurus/Query Tool, contains the functions that you can use in this type of search, so you don't have to remember them. Many of them will look familiar to you because they are used in other databases as well, but others are more specific to Checkpoint. Putting quotation marks around words will keep them together as an exact phrase. You can also use various functions to indicate how close together you think search terms should appear. For instance, I think documents most relevant to me will have the phrase charitable contribution within the same paragraph as real property. So I'm going to use the /p function between these two concepts. When I'm done, it populates the search box with my search string. I'm going to select the same sources as before. Now it brought me straight into a document rather than to the search results screen. This is because my search only returned one result. And that might be an indication that we overcorrected our search to be too narrow. However, this court case looks relevant to my search, so let's take a look. You'll see that the layout for this document is similar to the one for the code that we saw previously. In Checkpoint, court cases have a little more information up front, though, to quickly deliver some of the most important details, such as the code sections, which might look familiar, the date, judge, tax year, and which party the decision was in favor of. Below that will be the text of the case. How exactly this is written up can depend on the reporter or source and how the judge writes up opinions, so not all cases will follow the same structure. A final feature to note in court cases is what is called the citator. This is a feature of many legal research databases that helps you connect the case you're looking at to related cases. Some cases will link to many other court cases, whereas others may not have any at all. If we click on the one link associated with our case, we see lists of judicial history and cited in. This case doesn't have much history, though there is a memorandum associated with it. If there were an appeals history for our case, the records for those cases would be listed in this section as well. The Cited In section tells you about court cases that are about similar issues in which the judge cited our case to support their decision. This citation can be favorable, neutral, or negative. And this can tell us how our case has been used as precedent for subsequent cases. The citator essentially helps us determine whether we can consider our case to still be good law. Now that we've found some documents that we're interested in, let's go back to the search screen to look at other ways to find content in Checkpoint. If you're looking for a known item, for instance, say you were told to look up a code section or a court case, or you want to quickly get back to a document you had found earlier, the Find by Citation feature is the quickest way to pull these up. There are many search boxes in this feature that correspond to the source that your document belongs in, so it's important to know what kind of document you have. For instance, if we want to jump to section 170 of the Internal Revenue Code, we can simply put 170 in this first search box and click Search. This brings us straight back to the full text of the code section we found earlier. The same is true for court cases. After clicking Find by Citation, go down to the second option below it and select Cases. Here we have, again, search boxes that correspond to the source that our court case appears in. We can search by citation or case or party name. The citation for our case was 154 T.C.No.10. So this means I should go down to the boxes under Tax Court Reported Decisions. Here I only have to enter the numbers because they've already put the abbreviation for the source in for me. Again, it brings me straight to the full text of the case. We see our legal citation listed at the top, but we could have also searched for Oakbrook Land Holdings in the Find by Citation tool. This can be less precise if the names of the case are very common or if the party is involved in many cases. However, this is also a good feature for if you want to find cases associated with a particular individual or party. In this video, we only really looked at primary sources, but the same strategies hold true for secondary sources as well. Try some practice searches in secondary sources on your own to get a feel for what their content looks like. And if you have any further questions about navigating Checkpoint or need help refining your search strategy for your specific assignment, contact a librarian and we'll be happy to assist you.